YouTube Live. Hello, everybody out there on YouTube Live. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well this week. We are coming back to you on our live version of the Through a Therapist's Eyes podcast, Thursdays about 6:15 to 6:30. We fire it up to hang out with you a little bit before we turn the live mics on for the Where You Get Your Podcasts. So, yeah, we're doing Menopause Normalized Part 2 because... man, it's a show or a topic that we've already had great response by. I mean, I kind of shared last show that it was like I have not wanted to do this show because it's a difficult topic. It's a racy topic to talk about, and so we finally did it. And I tell you, I'm kind of glad that we did because we've had a lot of good responses from it. So this is part 2 because it was just way too difficult to get everything we wanted to talk about in part 1, but we need to have a national conversation about this topic. So thank you for joining us with that. This is what we endeavor to do. So Miss Victoria's hanging out. How are you?
I am.
Mr. Pope.
Hi, how you doing?
Another scope.
Yeah. You say I'm off the wall today, so
you're a little weebly wobbly.
I'm a wibbly wobbly. So
yeah, but it's better than like this crazy ass compulsive reading that we've got going
okay,
on.
now. Okay. That's enough.
That's enough? I can't do it anymore?
He's making fun of me because I think I read 5 or 6 books last week.
Oh my goodness.
All over 300 pages. Some of them were,
like she's reading
40.
like every moment of the day, dude.
I am.
Like
I read a whole book. I read a whole book on Sunday while my husband and son were gone for the day.
Now, is this in therapy or in counseling
no,
or psychology?
This is totally for fun.
This is fun reading.
Totally for fun.
Bodice rippers. Yeah.
Not learning reading, yes.
Not safe, technically not safe for work.
So I would say if you could read that much and you could do your doctorate.
Okay.
I'm going to work on that again.
Oh,
I wonder
working her.
Yeah.
Yeah, continuing the doctorate conversation.
Love it. Good
Ironically
stuff.
enough, I did talk about schooling and stuff with some of my people yesterday and today.
Good stuff.
I don't know if the doctorate is in my...
but it could be.
It could be. I was talking about potential with a client this morning, and I used that as an example. I have the potential to go to get my doctorate, but is that an expectation that I want to set for myself?
I can tell you it was not one I wanted to do in this field. I just didn't need it.
Maybe if I can find someone who will pay for me to go to...
It's the fact that you can. It's a terminal degree for master's level.
Yeah,
and that you can be licensed to practice.
Yeah, I didn't need it. Not in the social work realm.
Yeah.
But,
in my field, my doctorate is
psychology.
Yeah.
You got to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. It's sad that you really can't do anything with a master's degree in psychology.
No, you can.
No, you have to go further to.
It's like a BSW. You can't do anything with ours either. It's a combo. You got to go for the master's.
I think in the Commonwealth countries like Australia, you could do something with the master's in psychology.
Well, you could do psych testing. I mean, I don't mean to belittle anything. I mean, you could work in the schools. You could do psych testing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't say you can't do anything with BSW or.
It just limits your.
It's highly limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's highly.
You
limited.
typically have to go specific. Like, I mean, my undergrad was psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then I specified it in grad school for counseling.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we need to get going, guys.
We do.
We can wrap. Yeah, we ready to rock and roll, Neil. Yeah. Hello, this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. Happy belated birthday, I must throw out to my brother on August the 8th. I just realized and thought in the moment I'd do that because this is August the 10th, not August the 8th. But happy birthday, brother. Throw that out there to Ronnie Gazdick. I'm sure he won't ever hear this, though. That's what's sad about it, Victoria.
You never know.
It's possible.
Send it to him.
Send it to him. This is Through a Therapist's Eyes, where you get insights directly from panel of therapists in your home and in your car, but not delivery of therapy services in any way. We have the book that has been put to the editor, John.
Oh,
Really?
hallelujah.
Did you know that?
No, I did not know.
Yay.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. Congratulations.
Oh my gosh. But the painful part starts, she goes through the whole book in like, she went through a whole quarter of the book already the first week. Like content editing. That's deep editing of the content. And then she'll finish it up like in a week or two, and I get to basically rewrite the whole thing.
Oh,
Sounds like fun.
Well,
Oh my
so
God. It's
that's what a dissertation is.
yeah, essentially.
See, that's what you're doing. I mean, you're doing it.
I know. Well,
Yeah.
so you want me to go to doctoral program too?
Oh,
huh?
definitely. I think.
He's gonna have us all in school. this
Seriously.
guy.
Are you paying for it? Are you footing
No.
the bill for all this?
John Pope is hanging out with us. How are you?
I am doing outstanding. Thank you very much.
And Miss Victoria Pendergrass.
Good, very well read.
You are very well read. Compulsively reading. We're going to try to get moving on from that because we got a lot to get to today. 5 stars is important, guys, on Apple iTunes. We haven't had a comment on iTunes. It really helps us to get found on the show. So please leave us a note. If you listen on Apple iTunes, I got an ask for you. Will you please type a review about the show? That helps us tremendously.
Well, good review.
Thank you. That's true. Do I have to qualify that?
No, I don't think so.
And then contact at throughwiththerapisteyes.com is the great way to contact us and get up with us. I have an announcement that I'm excited about. It's a teaser. We have a new sponsor to the show. Now, understand we do have a couple of sponsors we played with over the time, but really, really and truly, the other ask that I have is that you guys make this show go and help us to, we just bought 2 mic cords that went bad on us. We have things like that we need help with. So buy us a cup of coffee is clicking on the page, dropping just a $5 gift and support for the show that hopefully entertains you, informs you, and helps you to cope with and understand mental health and substance abuse, because this is the human emotional experience, and we need you to help us endeavor to figure that out together. Like how I threw that all together there.
Yeah, it's smooth.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. So we got the intro out of the way last time with part 2, Menopause Normalized. My goodness. First of all, before we get to our lead-in that Victoria has for us, I suppose, what was your all's, just sense of having the conversation we had last time? I really want us to trigger a national and worldwide discussion on a topic that has hardly been talked about, is what I maintained. But as we did that and endeavored into that conversation, how would you experience that? How was that? What was that like for you? Difficult, weird, fine, awkward, enlightening.
Yeah. I mean, because I said it last time, I definitely learned things that I, as a female or a person who identifies as a female, did not know. So.
Right. Okay. John, as a dude, man, how was that like? What was that like for you? I'm curious.
Awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little awkward for me. I mean, if you want me to get into intellectual things or academic things,
No, just you.
But for me personally, it's not something that I still, after many years of living, don't feel comfortable talking about.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I literally had the sense when I was getting through my day. I had a very full day today, and I'm gearing my brain, and I go through this transition from the day into the show, and I was kind of like, "Oh man, are we gonna do that again?"
Yeah. Well, it's part of it is that I'm old school, and so you normally don't talk about things like this, and what's a man talking about something that is pretty much, I guess, in the area of being female.
Right. Yeah.
I think the important thing is that you're not making decisions for it. You're just informing.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. guys, because I will say I had some learning to do, and this sets up the emotional implications of talking about menopause and the sexuality reality that this all is. Right? How about that? Does that roll off the tongue? You know. Early on as a young man, I mean, you know, I'm in social work school and I had my internship, and there's two experiences that I had where it's kind of like, okay, we don't talk about sex, right? Like, what are we doing? So to break that down as part of my training, you got to imagine this now. I'm sitting here as a dude, like I think the only dude in the room. Maybe there was one other dude there, my guy that worked there, who was actually my supervisor. And they set it up to talk about sexuality as a way of the teachers at the practicum were all like aliens and wanting to know about human sexuality from us, breaking down all the words, you know, all the things that are said, like what body parts are called and all this. And I'm like, I'm the only dude in this room. I just wanted to melt. Like, this is torture. Are you kidding? I'm probably turning a little red right now thinking about it. Like. And the other one was, you know, a supervisor, Jeff, who talked about sexuality in my second job. It was like he did a training on it. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, now it's just like, fine, I talk about sexuality and sexual issues, women's issues, men's issues in therapy, like all the time because it's a part of, you know, mental health care. But you have to get through that awkwardity, right?
Right. Well, the other thing is that menopause is a very... It's natural in our life stage or in women's life stage.
100%.
And then we kind of, and this is where I was skirting around a bit, was that I was kind of putting some sexuality into it when there are two different things. They are similar, but they're not either or exclusively. Am I making sense? I'm looking at Victoria.
Maybe.
In other words, it's not just sexuality in terms of let's say.
Well, I think what I get you saying is that sexuality is an issue that we talk about in therapy. This has a component of sexuality in it, but it's just a normal life transition, medical reality.
Definitely.
Yeah. That we're on the same page then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's in part, you know, we were going to do a segment later on, but it's in our conversation now. So what do we mean by, you know, menopause normalized? And I think that's part of what I would like to have an agenda to touch on what you're saying, John. That this doesn't have to be a mystery. It doesn't have to be awkward.
Right.
It doesn't have to be fear-inducing or shame-inducing, as it is. It's just a normal transition. And, you know, I want to make sure we get to the end where we talk a little bit about the beautiful reality that this creates. This is just,
Exactly.
John, you just lit up.
Yeah, I did, because it's just one aspect of one's growing and being in having experienced life, being in life, and getting as many experiences as possible. And even if it's a transition from, let's say, being able to reproduce, is also another chance that one could actually deepen one's enjoyment of sex.
Sorry. I had a problem on my thing. I thought I had my phone jacked out. Sorry, John. What's that?
Well, I was hearing myself.
Yeah, I know.
Is that weird?
Yeah, it is.
It is very weird.
My apologies.
But in other words, I've got to say, in my own personal experience, sex is much better in some ways.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's part of what we're trying to.
And there is sex after 50.
There is sex after 50?
Yes.
Are you sure?
52.
That should also be normalized.
That should be normalized. It's yeah. I mean, that's good to know. I'm 50, right? It's good to know. there's a lot to all of that, and we're going to break those sections down because we talked about the idea of really a lot in part one, guys. And if you should have said this right off the get-go before we're however many 10 minutes in, to really check out part one if you haven't already heard that, because we talked really about what is menopause, and it's a lot of really good and important information that, as you said, Victoria, was very enlightening to you as a woman, right?
Yeah.
Which but now today is applying this. Like, how does this really apply in life, and what are the different facets in and outs of dealing with it, so we can continue that conversation. But we have a lead in, Victoria. You were going to talk to your ladies.
I was. Okay, so my mom ended up being sick last week, and so I didn't really get a chance to talk to her about it because she wasn't feeling good. But funny story, when we were wrapping up last week, which y'all were here for that, my grandmother called.
Okay, yeah.
Because she had been listening to last week's episode, and she mentioned that, which we thought was funny because that was one thing we were talking about, is that people will say that they don't experience it.
Well, I think we said it on the show.
Yeah. And
just before we ended, actually.
And so she was calling me to say that she didn't experience anything, and that she even went to her doctor, and her doctor all confirmed that, but we thought that was fun.
Yeah.
But I still want to I still plan on talking to my mama and her friends about it. I just honestly, with her being sick this past week, we didn't really get a chance to.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's a conversation that hopefully you didn't avoid. I think a lot of people avoid it. Hopefully you didn't just forget, because I think a lot of people actually do forget, which is one of the reasons why I think mothers don't talk to daughters as much about this all, because I think a lot of people
so it's
minimize.
like the talk.
Oh, go further with that, right?
No, the talk.
The birds and the bees.
The birds and the bees, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody talks about menopause.
There is no talk.
There's no talk.
There's the no talk.
Yeah.
Menopause.
Well, and I think that's what the whole forgetful thing too is, why we don't talk to our doctors. Because when you go to the doctor's office and you're like, okay, in your head, I'm going to ask about this, and this, right?
Yeah.
And then you get there, and then you leave the doctor, and you're like, oh crap, I forgot to ask about this,
Right.
this.
Of
I feel like
course.
it's kind of like that. You go to the doctor, you've been experiencing these weird symptoms like the ones we mentioned last week, and then you get to the doctor and you forget to mention them, because whether either you forget or you feel like it's not really important or it's not related to
This
anything.
is relevant.
Yeah. And so then that kind of prolongs the conversation as well, because you're not
Right. Why would I talk about my dry mouth? It's a weird experience.
At the
There's
gynecologist,
no way
right?
that I would have thought about talking to my doctor about the spot on my leg.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and especially
which I showed Victoria afterwards, and we were laughing about that too, right?
Yeah.
I told you, it's really real, isn't it?
And so, especially when you go to the gynecologist, you're there for
Pap smears.
gyno reasons. And
Right.
so, I'm not thinking on this list, that to ask my doctor
Why is
about
my hair falling out?
irritability or muscle tension
What happened to
or
my fingernails?
yeah,
Cracking
or
more.
changes in taste. What does that have to do with? I mean, sometimes when you get pregnant, you can have changes in taste, but what does that have to do with visiting my OBGYN?
I see your point. You wouldn't ask those questions.
Yeah, and so then I feel like that's like I said, prolongs the conversation, and then and so then I'm 30, or I'll be 30 next month. Then you're 30 years old and you don't know much about menopause.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, let's go down in how this stuff applies. I mean, let's first talk about fear. Right?
Let me tell you.
Fear about menopause, I think, is a big factor. Why do people cite fears? And again, a reminder, I've got a lot of links to articles and things that I saw out there as I was kind of thinking about different angles that we would say and look at. And this article was cool. They cited fears that there's all the stigmas attached to menopause, and is viewed as a time when a woman is no longer fertile and is growing old and less attractive. John, a lot of the beautiful transitions you were highlighting when you lit up is the opposite of what people are fearful about.
Neil saw my wife, and
Yeah.
and you would attest that she's beautiful.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Not as beautiful as maybe his wife even thinks.
Yeah.
But.
Right. Oh, I would get him in trouble, wouldn't I?
Yeah. Careful, man.
Sorry.
No. And my wife's the most beautiful wife, of course, but, seeing as old and unattractive and less of a woman after menopause is some of the sense of sadness that is about reproductive, ability leaving. And, we're so youth centric. We are so, Victoria, how many products are used in women's world to maintain looking young, right? I don't know much about these things.
Too many to count.
Right?
You got your eye creams, your face mask, your hair cream, your hair mat. There's
Hair mat?
Yeah,
Hair
hair
mat.
mask.
Hair masks?
Yeah, it's like
I
stuff
really
you put
did
in
not
your
know there was
hair
such a
and
thing.
you leave it in there and it's supposed to help.
Wow.
Whatever.
Very
yeah.
cool.
I mean,
Does it
that's,
thicken your hair?
it's supposed to provide. I don't even know.
Right.
I don't even know it's supposed to help with your scalp, I think, and the
John, have
nourishment of your
you ever
hair.
used a hair mat, brother?
Evidently not. You could see.
Well, you might have, in the back there's
Yeah.
some
I have
softening
some
product.
here. Yeah.
And not just that, and that's just face stuff, and then you have the rest of your body.
Right.
Right, and I've listened to podcasts and gotten into science about it. It's interesting. There was one that I listened to about what really works about them, and a lot of them that don't even work.
Oh yeah.
Spend thousands of money
Oh,
on
yeah.
product junkie, right?
Yeah, I bought this
There's a lot.
humidifier thing that's supposed to it just blows steam into your face, and it's supposed to open up your pores. It was $150. Maybe I've used it twice.
Right,
It just sits in my closet,
of course, 100%.
and I look at it every time I open my closet, and I'm just I don't have time for this.
I think that I will maintain, and I'm curious, Victoria, what you see with this is that the fear is a major factor in going through to keep our youth look, our youth feel, our youth reality, and that the menopause fear is transitioning, that there's no stopping it, and we're going to get in it and beyond it, and it's a horrible
Well, and
reality.
I think that some of that has to
Right?
do with the fact that our society has such an emphasis on being young and looking young and having that youth-like appeal or
Yeah.
appearance, and so therefore, yes, they use those fear tactics to say for people to not get wrinkles under their eyes or bags under their eyes or do this or have that or whatever. And I think that it's not necessarily focused on, appreciating your beauty as you get older and what that looks like instead of
Aging gracefully.
instead of this whole, which is why, I'm on TikTok. I see tons of videos on TikTok where girls get ready for bed and they put 17 different creams on their face before they get into bed.
How,
Right.
besides reading, how many books have you read this last week?
Uh-oh.
6
6 books,
Ish.
300 pages each. Okay.
more. Yeah.
More or more. Do you have time to watch TikTok? How do you have time?
I squeeze it in there.
John,
a
I
little
think
bit.
the TikTok thing was weeks ago. I think that was not in the compulsive reading section that Victoria
No,
has
but
landed
still,
herself in.
you see all these people, and I think sometimes it's a lot of times it is that fear of aging, and part of aging
Right.
is menopause.
Right. And we want to normalize that. We want to make that an okay reality. Isn't it okay, John? You said there's sex after 50.
Yeah, there is.
You don't wither away and turn into a prune, when you go through a body change. I'm not happy about some of the things that have changed in my body as I'm in middle-aged. My stamina is just not. I went outside 2 weeks ago to do lawn work, and I knew that I was going to push myself as long and as hard as I could. I had so many things I wanted to accomplish. I got myself heat sick It was.
Did you really?
I did.
Oh,
Not
I'm
bad, but I pushed it, and I purposely did that.
How'd you do on the elliptical yesterday?
Oh, I did fantastic. I got my record. I keep
We
on
ran
getting
into
records.
each other at the gym
But
yesterday.
my point is you're changing, and can we, John, accept those changes
Right.
without abashed fear about what we are and what we're going to be? Can that be?
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope so. You're asking him, but I'm answering. I mean,
That's okay.
I would hope that we can get to that point where people can embrace their beauty and their life as someone who is premenopausal and postmenopausal, like, and that just be a more accepted part of society than this whole
Shame.
well, yeah, and
reality.
that I have to be young, and I have to, and going through menopause it means that I guess for a lot of women that means that I am no longer this young person.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, and that's a lot to accept and
It is.
and deal
Scary.
with and be able to move past. Sorry, John, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm just thinking that one of the things is when people want to look like they are 15 again or 20 or dress that way or 25, and they do the extremes with the hair and what you could do with your hair, for example, in terms of coloring and types of styles, you can't do when you're 50. You can't do when you're 60. You can't wear the same clothes necessarily, but to do it in a way that you're not looking like you feel like you're an old fuddy-duddy.
Right.
You want to feel like you're attractive and that you're aging gracefully. And so
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think that there's a lot that goes into the next segment that I want to highlight is the shame, because we just did a whole show on shame-based feelings, and is it fair to say when we think about a segment on shame, like that it is such a huge part of the menopause experience, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
And needs not be at all. How about that for a bold
Yeah.
statement? Can we say that menopause is such a huge shame-based component that needs to be not at all? I would love to be able to
I think so.
facilitate that.
Yeah.
There's no reason to feel shameful about this, but I refer back to the show we just spent a long dive. We won't spend as much time on it here today, but all that shame does. I mean, you're sweating profusely for a reason. People can understand, and they're not going to demonize you if we all understand that that's sometimes what people experience in midlife when their bodies are changing. Sweating and
I do a lot of that.
well,
I was gonna say I'm
it's pretty.
sweating right now.
It can be bad though. I mean, you're like dripping wet for no
Yeah.
reason.
Oh,
when
yeah.
You're just
Well, and it's like
Having
50,
your own
because the
50
body's
degrees
changing.
outside. And
Yeah.
yeah.
You're literally sitting at your cubicle
Well,
and
You're playing with the air conditioning. The temperature gauge goes up or
Absolutely.
down, and
And
the
I think-
husband says, or the spouse,
I'm
the partner says,
breathing.
"Yeah,
yeah.
Well, and I think maybe part of the shame comes from, okay, so if I'm out in public, right, and let's say I'm at the Walgreens right here, and I'm buying something, and I'm clearly like dripping sweat.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm at the age where I'm in like perimenopausal.
Right.
I think for some women, the shame comes from you don't want to have to admit when someone looks at you, oh, I'm in premenopause or whatever.
Hell no.
And so I think that sometimes brings along some of the shame, which makes it hard to just completely get rid of that, because some women, we talked about this a little bit last week, but you don't want to admit that that's what's happening to you.
Right. It's the very nature of shame. Shame is I've done something wrong. There's something wrong with me. I am faulty or unwell in some way, and that I'm guilty for that.
And I think that sometimes it means that how do I say this? Accepting that I might look like I'm old enough to actually be going through perimenopause. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's interesting. Go a little further with that.
I think that might be where some of the shame goes, is that if I am in the Walgreens sweating profusely or having a hot flash, and someone either gives me a weird look, then that means
Or
that
you think they're
yeah,
giving you a
or they
weird
I think
look.
or they're whatever, and I say, that does that mean that now I look like I'm old enough to be going
Yeah.
through menopause, which
Comes
means
back to that a little bit, doesn't it?
means therefore I'm no longer looking youthful or young.
All of
So
it.
this isn't just menopause. This is when somebody comes up and I'm at Harris Teeter, and somebody that is younger than I, and I'm doing the self checkout, and said, "Do you want the senior discount?"
Right?
right,
Yeah.
and they're assuming that you're a senior just by the
yeah.
way you look, right?
Yeah, which is interesting, John. You're right. This isn't just about menopause, because this is experienced in different ways, which is one of the reasons why I think I've been able to really kind of work with women about this and identify with some of the realities, because again, men go through things too. We very much go through, dealing with
We lose our hair.
I mean, horrible, right?
Yeah.
And it's something you can't stop, you can't control. And I mean, I know a guy that was in college, a buddy of mine, that literally, like, you would be in a fight to the death if you took his hat off, because he wanted no one in the world to know that he didn't have hair. That
Yeah.
was like so
And-
mortifying.
And I think one of the, there's this going off topic a little bit, but the issues of when a bad toupee, for example, somebody's wearing a toupee.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to be compassionate, you want to be understanding, but it's almost saying, look at me, I've got a toupee, I'm bald,
However, I do want to make the point with this that I think one of the things that makes this so much more potent, though, is that these changes are so many changes and happen so rapidly that it's like all at once. And I just can't imagine it, because I haven't experienced it. But remember, men go through this like a roller coaster. Remember, it's tick, 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 tick to the top of the hill, and then what happens for a guy? It's like
They coast down.
that slow log ride, man, where we coast down with our hormone levels.
But women, they're not just experiencing
Tick, tick,
just
tick,
hot
tick, tick, tick,
flashes.
tick.
It's hot flashes and the dry mouth and the change in taste and the irritability
It's-
and this all at one time.
So
All at one
triple
time.
somersault. Triple.
while
All at
you're
one time.
while you're carrying the weight of everything else in your life.
Right, because now you still have teenagers, or your parents are aging,
Or
and marriage
you've
is
got-
stressful.
Or your young grandmother.
100%.
Yeah.
You've got a grandchild.
And
There's
so you're
much
watching
going
them,
on.
and in some cases, you're also the primary care provider. You are the parent.
So let me ask this midway to both of you. I meant to ask this right off the way, but I neglected because we were doing some other things. Maybe as a result of this conversation, more so you might. But up to date, particularly, John, I'm curious if you have. Victoria, you didn't really know much about it, so you probably couldn't have had, eyes and ears on about this. But, do you see this in your clinical practice? Do you screen this and work with this and kind of incorporate this in?
Whether somebody's going through menopause?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Do you see the applications?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. And part of that is that when you see a certain age, a person with the assessment, they provide their birth date, that sort of thing, and so
Right.
you see that, and
Right.
you don't want to make assumptions, but you
Yeah,
ask.
no.
But when you're doing your diagnosis and your treatment plan, is there a sense that is there an underlying medical condition? Let's say the person's having some difficulties
Right.
with menopause. It's going to affect one's mental state somehow.
100%.
Yeah, it could
I
be
think we
exacerbated.
We have an obligation to be aware about this. I would make a bold statement to therapists listening. It is out of our scope a little bit, particularly if you're a guy, because this is medical mostly, but this is a woman's issue for a guy therapist. But I'm going to make the bold statement that us as therapists need to incorporate the medical rule outs and the reality of menopause on the routine. And I'm not sure that that's done as regularly as need be.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I don't necessarily use it in screening or during my assessment. I will now.
There you go. Yeah.
But I mean, I
love that.
I do have some of my clients tell me
Yeah.
that they've already gone through menopause. When I ask, I have a section where you ask about like medical issues
Well, you know
and
what's
stuff.
interesting, Victoria? I don't
But-
want to cut you off, but I think it's a really important point. I'm curious, John, if you've had this experience. I've had that happen too, Victoria, but that's more recent. I don't think the first half of my career. I
Oh,
don't know
no.
that ever happened.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
At least that's been my lived experience.
No
in
one
terms of-
willingly said, "Oh, I've been
Oh,
through menopause."
now I've had that probably within the last 10, 15 years, a lot
Right.
more of that.
I'm thinking about the last 10 years as
Yeah.
well. The first 10 years, it never happened. I had never heard anyone say that.
I'm still
So that's
too
cool
new.
that you
Yeah.
see that, Victoria, and you're noticing that people are saying that.
Without me even having to ask.
Right.
But now I
Right.
definitely will make it more of a part of my screeners.
So glad we're talking about this. Let's take a time out here in the midpoint for one of our other sponsors. But man, I'm really glad that we're having this conversation.
Me too.
So our show sponsor is still through a Therapist Eyes is sponsored by Therapist Help. No, not Therapist Helper. Is sponsored by John.
Better help.
All right. BetterHelp is what, Miss Victoria?
BetterHelp is a app that you can use, and I believe it's also a website that you can have access to. Professional therapist,
I'd call it a service.
a service that you can have access to professional therapist whenever you need. They match you
Online?
Online, yeah. You fill out a form. They match you with a licensed therapist. You have access to them basically 24/7.
Licensed social workers, licensed all master's level, licensed mental health counselors, psychologists, anybody that's licensed to provide mental health counseling.
So the deal is they're a sponsor to our show. You get a 10% discount if you go to our website and click through the Therapist Helper tab. Neil, am I correct in saying that it's also if you just go to BetterHelp slash what is it? Do we know? Yeah, he's going to click through. We need to know that so you can just type it in your URL as well. But you get a 10% discount, and we get support for the show from that referral. You got it, Neil? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
It is through a therapist eyes. So betterhelp.com/through a therapist eyes.
Yeah, betterhelp.com/through a therapist's eyes. Or you can go to our website and click the button. So let's get back to our topic. So that is okay. Let's start this second half off with a big thing. It's not really applicable, or I wanted today to be about applying. How do we apply this to life? So let's try to be a little brief with this segment. And I'll say that we've got a great link about this, which was a big part of what they did on the show that triggered this willingness in my mind in the first place was, what was it? A New York Times podcast, dated July 28th, 2023. Menopause is having a moment. Okay. And they talked a lot, very informatively. I loved the way that they covered the treatments for menopause and the history of that. It was really, really excellent coverage for a lot of the things that is done in the world of treatment. But, John, it's funny. Primarily, when we talk about treatment for menopause, we're talking about hormone replacement. HRT, hormone replacement therapy. That's pretty much what we've got. Do you remember the big terror that got created about HRT?
It was cancer.
Yeah.
Different types of cancer.
Yeah. If you take these hormones, you're going to get cancer.
Uterine cancer, ovarian cancer.
Right. And I learned very much by listening to this podcast that and don't take it from me. I want you to go and check that out because that'll give you better information. But to paraphrase or summarize what I learned from that is that honestly, the big fear that was created about hormone replacement therapy creating cancer was created because of like a single study or a single event where they showed these increases in percentage of risk factor. Prior to that, I didn't realize this, and it went back a while, like in the 60s and 70s, like hormones were being prescribed pretty strong, like candy for treatment. 60s, 70s, maybe 80s. I don't remember dates as well, and then it stopped because of this fear. But the thing is you have a very low percentage of women that have cancer, and there's a percentage increase, but that percentage increase is already starting from a low percentage. You get it? So the
So it's a
ultimate,
minute amount.
they're basically
Yeah.
minute
Yeah.
amounts. And that's what they went through and layered out through the studies to really get clearer. Like it was this great national fear that got created, evidently, like kind of for no reason.
Yeah. I hate when stuff like that happens.
It happened in a big way.
But
then it impacts the ability for people to get help.
Yeah. Hormone replacement therapy, I've been terrified about. I didn't want to participate in it. And now I'm kind of wondering, like, maybe that's okay. Maybe it's fine. I didn't know that until I listened to the show 2 weeks ago. Right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts, John? I wasn't sure
no,
if you're
no,
thinking there.
No, I was just thinking that probably one of the things that the media does, unfortunately, I mean, it does bring issues to the forefront that need to be addressed. But one of the other problems is it's hyperbolic, and so it magnifies, let's
Right.
say, and so suddenly everybody gets onto that train. And so basically good sound therapeutic practices are not are discarded because of a fear.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and in other words, people's alleviation of some of the more difficult symptoms of menopause.
Hyperbolic, I would add, fear, but also the shame that we were talking about, and some of the other things that kind of go into preventing us to even feel comfortable talking about it on a podcast.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So the treatment that they go at, actually, hormone therapy, vaginal estrogen, low dose antidepressants, gabapentin, clonidine. It was interesting. I've never heard of fenzolinidate. And that's a hormone-free option for treating menopause hot flashes. Evidently, it works by blocking a passageway in the brain that helps regulate body temperature and is actually osteoporosis meds. So, I don't know. See, that was new and interesting. Maybe that's some advancement that we've had, but see what I mean? I mean, it's just there's nothing but medical reality here with medicines treating this, and
Right.
you're not going to treat all of the things that are going on with your body changing.
Yeah. That's why, I think that's why some people don't even realize they're already halfway through it
Right.
by the time they realize what's going on, and you kind of just have to. It's almost like a panic attack. You kind of just have to let it ride it out, kind of thing sometimes, and just let yourself calm down on its own. Let your body come down on its own.
It's funny that you say that. I want to
And-
jump in and transition us to the panic attack and what we do, because I think that, the question is here, and then go further with what you're saying. How does this affect mental health? How does this interact with the anxiety and the depressions and mental health realities?
Well, I think it definitely impacts mental health as far as it probably could lead to having things like panic attacks and anxiety attacks. I was
Yeah.
just more comparing it towards like sometimes you just have to ride it out and not
So you get the hot flashes.
seek that there is no there's with the understanding that there's not necessarily medical treatment.
Well, I'd like to change that jargon, Victoria.
Okay.
I think that's unfortunately, I don't think you're doing it, but, historically, in stark terms, women were told basically, oh, yeah, this is a thing. You're getting older. Deal with it. And it's like,
Yeah.
yo, hold on. Wait a minute. Don't do that. Like, I'm not saying you were doing
No.
that, but I want to change the idea of ride it out to, is this something that we can accept?
Right.
You know, when we were
Okay.
talking about shame and medical conditions and whatnot, it was like fighting against this stuff or accepting this stuff makes a huge difference in why I think creates a lot of the mental strife that goes along with this. It's a hell of a thing to accept. I know. I can't imagine. I don't know as a guy. I know I don't know. But at least I know I don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a hell of a thing to accept, but I think when we're fighting against what our body is naturally doing, you're going to create all kinds of distress.
Okay. I'm wrapping my brain around this a little bit, and
Okay.
that is, in other words,
I feel like I said something wrong, Victoria.
No, accepting
Okay.
it is different than, let's say, fighting it. And I'm wondering if, by what Victoria was saying, is, let's say if you have a panic attack, as an analogy, you don't try to fight it as much as you go ahead and say, okay, you've kind of rehearsed yourself how you're going to go through with this, and I can get to the other end of it. And I'm wondering if it might be a little bit more. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Kind
other
of.
words, yeah. Well, yeah.
Go, use your words.
My words are, you said you just kind of embrace it.
Yeah.
Yeah, embrace
Yeah,
it.
and
It just is. It is what it is. How's that?
Neil knows that phrase drives me crazy, and I was talking about that. On
I did it on purpose.
Did you really? Oh. Nicely done, man. Yeah. On July month in review, we've resolved this though, John. It is what it is, but therefore I'm going to do what I can do. You remember that part too,
That's
right?
Yeah. I can do what I can do.
Thanks, John. It is what it is. Menopause is what it is, but I'm going to do what I can do. And I think that's rolling with it. I think that's accepting it. You know, it's funny. One of these times that somebody brought up menopause in a therapy session not too long ago, they were like talking about, we talked about it. My mom told me just put my head in the freezer. That's what worked for her. That's what I'm going to do. I'm like, holy cow.
okay.
That's acceptance.
I mean, it
Sure.
is.
Let me
It's
just
like,
go open my deep freezer.
I'm
and
hot.
shove
Let me
my
just
head on
cool
it.
off for a minute and come back out. And it's I think if you fight this, you're really losing the battle to what your body is going to do, and you bring out all kinds of more fear and more shame and more disappointment and more sadness and more helplessness and disempowerment, and the list probably goes on.
Well, I mean, because for the most amount of women, this is inevitable. I mean, it's yeah. I would say a very.
Is it not an all?
I mean, I don't know. According to my grandmother, she didn't have it, so.
She's still menstruating.
She's still menstruating at 80. Right, John?
But
I can't believe it.
Did you just said it? You said it.
I said it. I'm so sorry to Grandma.
it's okay. But
But wait a minute. That's the awkwardness that we just all felt, and we laugh a little bit to take away the weird feeling. But that's a question. That's a medical reality
so
that we need to reconcile.
it's inevitable, right? Like Thanos says that he's inevitable.
Thanos, yes.
Exactly. And
Click of
so
the finger.
Even
know-
I know this.
Good job.
I'm so proud of you, John.
For all of you at all that don't know, Thanos is a character in Marvel sports, Marvel Comics.
Universe.
And,
The
Marvel
universe,
universe, and he.
But anyway, so the whole point is that it's inevitable. So fighting it is only going to put yourself in a more uncomfortable, awkward, whatever position than if you just, like a panic attack, embrace it and just, do what you can, but then move on or move forward.
So let's go a little further in applying this in life. And it was funny because I think we were 15 minutes into our conversation last week, Victoria, and you were like, well, maybe we'll get to this, but I just got some thoughts, and I'm thinking, when you're going through all this and it's a lot, and I wonder, this has to does this affect marriage? You remember that?
Yeah.
Hey, you went through that?
Yeah, that's when John first suggested I do that as my
The doctorate
the
program
doctorate program.
dissertation.
Yeah,
Yes.
my dissertation.
I think that needs to be a part of this conversation. How do we see, John, if you've screened for this and managed this, what do we see, about how it affects marriage? Does it affect marriage?
It just depends on the individual, and if it's a female client, if I have a female client, that may be expressed to me. If I have a male client, that is expressed to me in saying that sometimes sex is not as enjoyable, and on one level, and that is that there might be the vaginal dryness that takes place, and so there could be pain during intercourse.
Great.
It doesn't have to be that way.
No?
No.
That's where you get to the creams.
That's where you get to the creams, and that's
Yeah.
Yeah, they make plenty of stuff out there to help that.
yeah.
Okay. Right. The question, does this affect marriage? I think we could say you went to as sort of an
intimacy.
example, John, that certainly it is a medical reality for men as well, just again, as less dramatic as it is for women, but men go through changes as well in your sex drive and your libido.
ED.
Erectile dysfunction begins to be a major issue with men in their 50s more so than 40s, but very much so affects men sexually. Does menopause and body changes, hormone changes affect women sexually? Yes. Do you think that sexual changes affect marriage?
Hell yes.
Right?
Like,
I mean, this is a terrifying reality sometimes. I am not attracted to my partner. I don't want to have sex. What am I going to do?
right.
They're going to want to immediately divorce me. It's
Right.
so, I see this in
Well, I mean, and it's not just the sex intimacy. At least I don't think. I think it affects other aspects of marriage, like getting along with each other. And because, I mean, imagine you have your imagine me, right? Because I am a
You
wife.
are so sweet and docile and kind.
Yeah, and I'm a hot mess, and I'm a lot to handle. And bless my poor husband and my 1-year-old.
Right.
But imagine that, and then all of a sudden it gets worse. Like my irritability gets worse. I'm now all of a sudden not eating like I normally would be. I'm, having all these mood changes.
Sleeping.
My sleeping is non-existent or erratic or inconsistent. So it's not just.
There are these factors.
Yeah, so it's not just a sex intimacy part of it too. I think it's also just, cohabitating together, and now all of a sudden you have this person who is
She's a stranger.
yeah, like a stranger in your own house, and then
Wait
you
a
have
minute.
to
Are we blaming women?
no. But if you're not setting up boundaries and you're not communicating that these are the things that's going on.
Right.
Like, hey babe, I'm really sorry I'm irritable this week, but my doctor informed me that I'm going through perimenopause. And
Right.
and if you're not
Can we have that conversation?
yeah, I think so.
I hope so.
Well, if
But
you're
I
not
find
having
people
that,
don't.
yeah, then
They don't.
I think the conversation, the communication is so important, because what I find attractive in my wife, besides all the many other things, is that we can communicate.
Yeah,
And
it's
we
so
can
crucial.
It is so crucial. And so, to have that authentic relationship actually strengthens the marriage, in my mind.
yeah, I think you can go one of two ways, right? When you hit menopause or perimenopause, all that stuff, you either go the way of John here and you make everything work, you do the communicate, or you go the other way and you it ruins your marriage.
Yeah.
But I was also thinking, what about same-sex couples where you have two women who
Yeah.
are both going
Oh,
through
wow.
possibly both going through perimenopause.
No, I
at
didn't
the-
go.
at
I
the
haven't
same-
gone there.
At
You haven't
the
gone
same
that
time,
direction, John. It's a really excellent
Yeah, I had
point.
never thought
And then,
of
like,
that.
how
Never
is-
have
so
thought of it
sorry.
either,
I'm
John.
sorry.
It's okay.
Me either. Isn't
I'm
that
the
amazing?
ally here, so I'm just thinking about like how is
Yeah.
that? I mean, imagine having just one person in a marriage go through menopause, but
Right.
then having that times two, and you still have if y'all have kids, if they have kids together, like you know, and they're still.
So I'm
like,
sure you're.
that.
it's an
I'm sure
excellent
that
point.
puts a huge strain on their
You know,
relationship
a
too.
lesbian couple went two women together in a partnership has got to be one hell of a ride in midlife. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. But I'm going to make this a major point if I can, a takeaway. It's not my phrase. I want to make that clear, but I read it and I subscribe to it 100%. I think I said this in part one as well, but it really stands to reason here when we're talking about, marriage and the different factors that it means that it takes over with, men and relating to men and all of this. Like, hear this clearly. Menopause does not create any new emotional issues with an individual person or between the spouses or partners. It just doesn't. It doesn't create any problems. It heightens them.
Mm-hmm.
It magnifies them to the exponential level of 10 or whatever. And
So you're
that's the
saying
truth.
that if resentment was already there
now it's going to be
prior
exemplified.
to
Right.
perimenopause,
Okay.
it's only going to be, as you just said, exemplified, heightened.
If hurts were there prior, they are going to be heightened. If communication problems were there prior, it's going to be magnified. It doesn't create any communication problems. It doesn't create any marital issues. It doesn't create any personal characteristics. It doesn't create any deficits of self-esteem. But when they're there, they really get magnified. That's the thing that we need to
It's like becoming a vampire.
What do you
All your
mean by
senses get
that?
heightened.
Heightened.
Ah, is that what the
Okay,
Queen of Vampires-
she's
I'm just
so it's everything. It's post Anne Rice
Yeah.
vampirism. that
Okay.
you're talking
Twilight,
about.
yeah.
Twilight. Is this a Twilight Saga
Saga.
thing? Yeah. I
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
Um,
You know.
but
Throw 'em under
yeah,
a bus
so I
there.
mean, it makes sense that I mean, I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, but let's say there's medical issues that are going on. Let's say someone does develop cancer or something. There's going to be a heightening of some of the, and I'm not talking about something that is, in the sense that menopause is a natural progression of aging, but I am saying that let's say that one gets sick, has cancer, develops it, or an autoimmune disease or lupus, there's going to be a heightening of some of the tensions there as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Exponentially, like you said, 10%. I mean,
Well,
10
like
times.
I think you can really speak to what you enjoy experience,
Yeah.
John. I know a year or two ago were talking about the real medical challenges that y'all
Yeah.
have faced.
She's starting to see more and
Yeah.
more of the progression of her arachnoiditis.
Right.
She's starting to see some of the other physical effects. And so, besides the natural part of aging, it's
It's a doubly
yeah,
compounded impact.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you want to know what we're talking about, we did a spot on service animals. You can look back in our history. It's somewhere in the middle, like episode 100 and something, you know. And Joy joined us, and it was awesome experience because Bob the dog got to be in action, and we totally got to observe it, Victoria. It was really
now I'm jealous.
super cool. It was super cool. Bob was totally taking
I've
care
met Bob
of
the
her.
dog.
You like Bob the dog. He's great.
Yeah,
He's
But
awesome.
he's
he's
like
also ginormous.
He is a big boy.
yeah, he's got a wide arse.
A
It's
wide
a-
arse.
Yeah, he's very sturdy, and so when Joy falls, she can push. He'll stiffen.
Brace.
He'll brace, and she can pull herself up.
Yeah, that's
Okay, yeah.
It's a lot. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Let's end here and spend some good time on menopause normalized. John, we were touching on it, I think, when you kind of beamed and brightened up about how this is a wonderful, positive growth, life change experience.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if we look at this as reverse teenager in reverse,
There, I was just thinking of that.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
go-
like
ahead.
getting your driver's license.
Yeah.
Or looking forward to that, or being able to go to the prom, or
Right.
something of that sort. Or that you get to have your adult beverages when you turn 21.
I mean, it's such a terrifying reality. I remember my son literally saying to me, "Dad, you have a lot of hair on your arms." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right." He's like, "Dad, I don't want that."
Oh, you could be scared of it. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
He's like, "Daddy, I don't want that."
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, "Well,
the
buddy,
inevitable.
It's okay." I said, your body goes through changes, and we had probably similar to the talk. We had
Go
many
through-
stages of the
Oh,
talk,
puberty.
right?
So you're
Puberty.
Puberty, yeah.
And he was terrified about this medical change, this body changing, and he was uncomfortable with it. And he had to, as you said, Victoria, go with it. And so it's a similar thing, I think, in reverse, teenage pubescent years is, gracefully aging. And like you brought up, John, I mean, this is the same thing. And we don't, we know teenage times are tough.
Yeah.
They're tough. But as you get through them, is there not awesome payoffs like you were just pointing out? So yeah, I think there's a parallel there. I think there's a parallel there. One of the things that's awesome, it's kind of funny, but really true. I mean, I'm a guy, I can't identify this at all, but how amazing, Victoria, will it be when you don't have to deal with dun,
A period.
right?
Bleeding from my body
I can't
for
imagine.
1 week at a time.
Can't imagine.
Once a month.
Oh,
I
it's
can't
just-
imagine.
Eric,
It
go
effing
ahead.
sucks.
It sucks.
It sucks. I mean, never mind.
TMI or
TMI.
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't get one currently right now because of
Pregnancy.
my method of birth control.
Oh,
but before this,
Yeah.
after I had a baby and I got it back, and now I was like, I went 9 whole months without having it
Oh,
because I
wow,
had,
right.
it sucks.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It almost
Yeah.
basically went away.
It
for
goes
9
away
months
when
of
you're pregnant,
pregnancy,
yeah.
of course. And then, but when it came back, you were
Well,
like,
and I didn't have mine for a while because I breastfed, which prolongs getting your period back. So I didn't have my period for like a year and a half,
oh wow,
or if not more.
a reprieve.
Yeah, it was great, and yeah, it sucks.
When you go through menopause, this is a permanent gone.
You no longer have to carry around tampons and
Right?
pads, and
right,
have to worry about if you're bleeding through your pants or not.
right. I can't imagine, John.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I can't. I was going to say that
Because it's not. Yeah, no. So, I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you.
John just got violent. You got to
I got
check out the
violent.
YouTube
Domestic
video.
violence.
That was a classic through a therapist's eyes moment right there. Mark that down,
Sorry.
Neil.
Eric Erickson. Do you know the stage of growth that people are when they're
I can't
middle
remember.
age? Okay. Is it's
Yes, you
generativity.
can. Come on, wait a minute. We got you off kilter.
No, I
Eric
really
Erickson's
can't.
developmental milestones and
can't.
Mark. Okay.
Generativity versus stagnation.
Yeah.
And so if you have sort of the negative aspect of it, you will feel that, oh God, this is the end of the world, stagnation.
Right.
Or you see this as a way to even be more creative
Awesome.
and be generative.
I love this.
And I'm sorry I hit you.
It's okay.
Okay.
It was
I
a
was-
love tap.
That was a love
Yeah.
tap.
Go further with that because that is the beautiful change process, and that's a psychological thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where people, if they can prime themselves for success. The idea behind the stages that Erickson talks about very quickly is that we, in order to have a sense of fulfillment in one's life, one has to successfully go through these stages. For example, intimacy versus isolation is when you are Victoria's age, and and that's what you've done. You've married, you have your life partner, you have
A child.
and all of that. When you get a little bit older, you say, okay, now how am I going to make this mark in the world? So I've got my kids, they're growing up, and then there's a transition where you could actually contribute even more to life. into society, for example. And
There's
then
a lot that you're gaining
gaining, so there's no
versus
loss.
what you're losing
Yeah,
is part of what I hear you
Yeah.
talking about, right?
right.
There's
Exactly.
so much gain here than what we're losing. What a concept.
Yeah.
Thank you for going through that. I mean, that is a mind shift right there that I think is really pretty profound. And that we can help people with, as you say, to set up this process. And you know what? I'm sorry. Let's not leave men out of that either,
Yeah.
right? Because men, oh my gosh, when you start having erectile dysfunction, you know how horrible that is for a dude? John's eyes just got wide, right? Like,
Not me.
it's okay. Never. I never had that problem.
Hey,
It's a horrible show for a dude to have that.
Just a sense of one's.
And let's
So
face
we
it,
need to do a program on that, my friend.
probably so, sir.
Yeah, especially now that you're 50.
Oh God. Ouch. Ouch.
I got her. I got him.
I know. John's like
John,
John's nailing people today, man.
So,
I
sorry.
felt that burn for you, Chris.
What is going on today, John? Are you okay?
Well, you were looking at me, and I'm going, okay.
We will do a show on that, but not a personal show.
A broad topic show.
A broad topic show. But back to the point, that's a lot of men experience that. And a lot of men, like, I feel horrible. Like, that's one of the reasons why I challenged myself the other day. I mean, I went out and I wanted to weed eat the yard, and I, got the blower out. I trimmed the bushes, and I pulled up all the trims. My son helped me a little bit with that, and I went and I sprayed a bunch of the weeds down in the back and the thing. I mean, I went all through my yard and just went crazy, like, all day long. And you know what? Yeah, it's hot out in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I ended up having a headache that night and just crashed when I did stop. And because I was frustrated, Victoria, like, I'm wanting to do as much as I was able to do when I was 30. I'd do that all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, get out there earlier. I'd be chopping wood and cutting a tree down and
Adjust your
whatever.
expectations.
Right. So go there a little bit, Victoria.
Well,
What
I
do you
mean, and this is, how I talk all the time about how we have themes. So in some days at therapy, it just seems like you talk about the same thing.
Yes, that's
with each
true.
client.
That's true.
Today, it was no exception. I've
Really?
talked about expectations like all day today.
Really? Interesting.
Yes. And so, I mean, sometimes we just have to realize that, we might have the potential to do something, but it's not really realistic. And so therefore we have to adjust our expectations to something more realistic.
Accepting things that we cannot change.
Oh, the Saturday Night Live lowered expectations.
Is that a Saturday Night Live
yeah,
skit?
Yeah.
I have not
From the
seen,
90s.
I have not seen the skit.
So no, you it's not that you lower them as much as the fact is
Adjust
that
them.
it adjusts them or it takes longer. But think about the ride, and that may be part of it, is that because you are able to deepen one's communication, intimacy increases, and so the pleasure of physical intimacy increases as well. And it doesn't decrease, in fact, increases as one gets older, at least speaking of someone who's much older.
Because honestly, John, I think that the reality of that is that either happens or you crumble.
Yeah.
Like you said, Victoria, I think, the stakes are very real, and I feel people's panic and experience that, right? Like, you get to a place where you deepen your relationship and you communicate better because you almost have to. The alternative is you crumble.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair way to put it?
No,
Is
I
that
think so.
Sort of what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Embrace it.
So change is good. You have new opportunities. You've developed new understandings. You have empowerment. No more nonsense that you put up in life. You have maturity and a sense of increased life experience. You have wisdom, valuing yourself and valuing your wisdom. To name a few, I was doing a mental checklist on, what happens in later in life and how we can embrace this and age well with this. Closing thoughts, and I have a unique way, guys, that I want to take us out. Closing thoughts, comments. I think that we've done a service to
Yeah.
open up a national
I hope
and
so.
worldwide dialogue on menopause. I have not done this show.
Well, I'm just
glad that we did.
I'm worried that I would be viewed as a misogynist. and
I am
I'm
as
not.
well. We're
Yeah.
Yeah.
men.
Yeah.
But we could deal with this in therapy.
Uh-huh.
We can deal with this in conversation. There isn't any reason why we have to be cut out of this as a way to be supportive, encouraging, kind, and loving about it.
Yep. Ask questions. That's mine.
Go.
Don't be afraid to ask questions,
Yeah.
especially women to other women in their life, like older women in their life who have maybe already gone through this experience.
Don't be alone.
If
Yeah.
you're a male,
Ask
if you're
questions.
ask questions. But if you're a male, be empathetic. Walk in your spouse's or your partner's shoes.
Don't
And-
slam them for going
Right.
through something that's
That's-
just natural.
And it's
men
not
do that.
it's not about you. It's not a reflection on your virility or
Right.
anything.
And I think that's done honestly. Oftentimes, women, please hear from a man's perspective, we don't know. We don't know. No one told us. And as much as you don't know about what's going on, can you imagine how much your guy doesn't know?
Your dad
What's
didn't
going
give
on?
this to you in the talk.
Right.
Not a
Yeah.
part of the deal.
Yeah.
So let's have grace both ways in going through what
For
is
sure.
a difficult thing. Okay. The way I want to take us out is cool from our YouTube listener ship. Cass, you're awesome. And I thought it was so cool, right, in the way that she put it. So this quote takes us out. It's on the YouTube page. Go check out YouTube and interact with us, guys. And this is a case in point of why that's so cool. So, guys, John, we'll see you next week. Victoria, see you as well next week. She says, our society has to change and honor the aging process for men and women. Honor the experience of living, childhood, young adults, seniors, aging seniors are stages to be talked about. What a beautiful way to put it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Guys, take care.
Absolutely.
Be well. We'll see you next week.
Bye.